Hey, what can I do for you today? You're here because you're having some problems with your tingles? Well, it's unfortunately all too common of a problem. Some people burn out their tingles from overuse, some people let them atrophy from underuse, but it all results in the same thing. You don't get any tingles and you can't relax and enjoy your ASMR content. I gotta say though, I haven't seen you here before. How'd you hear about this place? A friend recommended it to you after you went to see a registered tingle technician? They just told you to rewatch their calibration content. Let me guess, that didn't fix anything. Most of those registered technicians can't even tell whispering from soft speaking. They just follow the printed manual, but they don't have any idea what they're actually doing. But you finally made it to the right place. So let me just get a file open for you and we'll get started. So when did you first start to notice these symptoms? And not necessarily a lack of tingles completely, but a decrease in their frequency or quality. A few weeks ago. Yikes, this may be a more serious case than I thought. And what was the first thing that you noticed? You were watching your favorite ASMR video, and the tingliest part came up. You felt nothing. I see. Well, this is a relatively common way that people can damage their tingles. For some people, watching the same content over and over again can sort of reinforce those pathways, but for others, especially those who experience particularly strong tingles, it can actually start to short-circuit them, and unfortunately, it seems like you're the latter. But not to worry. We've dealt with a lot of cases like this before, so I'm sure I'll be able to fix you right up. So the first thing that I'm going to need to do is take off your front panel so that I can plug in our diagnostic unit, but I just need you to give me permission to access this so that I'm able to get in, okay? Perfect. Okay. Okay, that is all loosened up, and I'll just remove the panel here. Alright, looks good. Then I will hook you up to our diagnostic machine. Okay, that's one. And two. Okay, there we go. Okay, just get this all set up and add your information to the file. Okay, next I'm going to expose you to some common triggers so that I can get some diagnostic readings, alright? And not only am I going to look at those numbers, but afterwards I'm also going to ask you to report how you're feeling, alright? Okay, so the first thing that we have is some crinkling. Yeah, I can see the recordings coming through. Get some good quality data. Okay, that looks good for the crinkling. Next, we're going to be doing some tapping. What I have here is a standard tapping plate, and we use this to make sure that the type of tapping, the quality of the tapping that everybody's receiving is the same, so it doesn't interfere with our data collection. So we'll just do a little bit of that as well. And our final trigger that we have to do the diagnostics with is going to be some brushing. So we will just do this very gently here. Okay, let's read those diagnostics. And can you tell me how each of those things made you feel? Okay, so you felt nothing for the tapping or the brushing, but you had very slight tingling for the crinkles? And would you say that you often listen to ASMR that involves crinkling sounds? Right, okay. These are some very interesting results, and I think there may be a more serious issue that we need to address rather than just, rebooting your processing unit. So I'm going to need to take a deeper look into your circuitry, alright? Yeah, okay. So I have my tools here. Okay. And we will just take off the diagnostic interface. To give ourselves access to the internal components. Alright, great. Okay. So now I have access to your internals here for your tingles. And I'm just going to reach in here and pull out your TPU, or Tingle Processing Unit. And what the TPU is it is the central point that all of your tingle organs feed into, and it processes the signals and sends out the tingles to where you feel them in your body. Luckily, I don't see any damage to the TPU, but we're going to plug it in so that we can assess which other of your internal components need repair. Okay? All right. So I'll set this up here. Now you have lots of different subunits that are going to feed into the TPU. So what I'm doing right now is figuring out which ones we need to address and which ones are no longer working. Okay, wow. It looks like you have 4 different subsystems that need repair. No wonder you weren't experiencing any tingles at all. This is some very serious damage. Okay, let's see here. So, okay, first thing that we're going to get is your tapping transmitter. Okay, so let's unhook that, bring it out. So this is your tapping transmitter, and it is responsible for sending the tingles from your tapping and tapping-like triggers to the TPU. And you can see these little bumps here. That is what allows for the different tapping patterns. Fortunately, this one looks like it's going to be quite the easy repair. It just needs to be rewound. And luckily, I have a key right here. So we're just going to attach the key to the bottom of the tapping transmitter. Okay, and just give that a couple of cranks. And now you can see here that this is spinning again. And then that'll allow all of those taps to be transmitted, okay? So I'm going to reinstall this, and I'm just going to leave the key on the bottom so that you can do some self-repairs if necessary, if you ever have problems with this unit again. Now that is not something that the registered technicians will tell you to do. They will always recommend you come back in. But honestly, the risk for any damage to a repair as simple as this is extremely low, and I am very confident in your capabilities, okay? So, let's put that back in place there. Okay, on to our next subunit. Okay. Now we have the deep ear drive. And now the deep ear drive is responsible for all of those deep, bassy, relaxing sounds. Things like, microphone brushing or blowing on the microphone, things of that nature. And it looks like this one is full of dust. It seems like you've not been using this one much at all. No judgment. Our tingle tastes can change all the time, but it wouldn't hurt for you to find some sort of content containing some of these deep ear sounds, so that this can kind of remain in good working order, okay? So I think I'm just going to have to clean this one before I reinstall it. So I will actually get our brush for that. Just clean this out. How long have I had this shop? Oh, about 3 years now, I think. You know, it's been doing pretty well. I mostly see repeat customers for different upgrades or changes to their Tingle profile. Not too many repairs. I do get them occasionally, but I mean, a lot of the time, first time a customer comes in, it'll be a repair, but my work doesn't usually break after that, at least not for a long time. Okay, I think that should be good. So, take the wire and plug it back into its port and put that deep ear drive back in its housing. Great, so that is 2 out of 4. Alright, next we have the visual trigger cortex. So I'll take that out here. So here it is, and what this does is it takes signals from visual triggers from the eyes and processes it into information that the TPU can decode, allowing you to get tingles from visual triggers as well as auditory ones. So fortunately, it looks like the screen is fine. What actually is wrong is some of the connections on the back have come loose. So I'm just going to need to resolder those, okay? I always keep my soldering iron nice and hot for occasions like this, so we don't have to wait. So I'll just get those connections back. Of course, this is lead-free solder. Don't want to be putting any lead into your body. Okay. Great. And then I'll slide it back into place and then solder the connections in there as well. All right. Okay. Great. How did I get into this business? Well, I actually used to be a registered Tingle technician, but they fired me after they realized my clients weren't coming back for any upgrades. The upgrades were actually just properly calibrating all of the components so they were working at their full capacity. No, it's fine. I didn't really like the corporate dress code anyway. Plus, now I've got my own shop. That should be the last connection there. We'll just check to make sure that's working. Great. Most of my clients followed me after I left anyway, so I'm doing just fine here. They knew they weren't going to be able to get this kind of quality continuing to go to the registered techs. Okay. Well, I think that's working. I'm just going to get my light here and quickly flash it into your eyes. Yep, perfect. It is working now. Finally, we will have a look at your tingle capacitors. Now, this is what can atrophy if you don't experience tingles often enough, because the signals from the TPU actually keep the capacitors charged, and these capacitors are what provide the tingling sensation to the rest of your body, kind of like an electric charge going through your nerves, okay? Okay, so I'm just gonna have to make sure that they're completely decharged before I take them out. So if you do have any remaining tingles in there, you might feel a strong tingling sensation right now as I activate them, okay? Just want to make sure that they're safe. Alright, I should be able to go in and grab those now. And pull that out. This is the housing unit and your tingle capacitors. As you can see, the housing unit has a spot for 3, but they've actually only given you 2 capacitors. And this is pretty common, you know, with the big brand places. They just give you 2 capacitors because it's all that is required to produce that tingling sensation, full body tingles, but they can be pretty weak, and that is if you can get them to function properly with just 2, which I'm not surprised yours is actually burnt out since you only had the 2. The casing also seems to be pretty corroded, so it makes it extremely easy to overload. So instead of replacing the capacitors alone, I'm actually going to get you an entirely new casing. Okay. Here, just a brand new casing. And we're going to put in 3 brand new capacitors that come fully charged. Alright, there we go. And I will pop that into its new home. Okay. Alright. Now, I don't offer this to all of my clients, but you seem pretty chill and like a real ASMR aficionado, so I'll let you in on a little secret. I have this subroutine that I can download to your TPU to intensify your relaxation, but you will have to keep it quiet because it's not exactly approved. But what do you think? We can always remove it if you don't like it, but I've never had someone come back and ask for it to be removed. You want to try it? Alright, cool. So we'll get the TPU here. We will also plug in the device containing the subroutine. And I'll just take a second to upload it to your TPU. Okay, it looks like that is uploaded and active. So I'm going to reinstall your TPU. Put the cover back on here. And take out my memory device. Great. We'll put it back in its place there. Okay. And I'll close up your internals, alright? Great. Now we can put this away. So now I'm going to run the same diagnostic tests that I did at the beginning so we can compare your initial readings to the readings now, all right? Perfect. Okay. So we'll start with the crinkling again. Okay. And the tapping. Excellent. And finally, the brushing. Ready? So I'll look at those readings. Yeah, these are much better. But even more importantly, how do you feel? Best tingles you've ever had? I sure hope so after a whole tingle capacitor was added and my special subroutine. Alright, the last thing we have to do is just unhook you from the diagnostic machine and replace your front panel, okay? So just get these wires out and unplug them. All three. Great. And then I will reinstall your front panel, okay? So I'm just going to switch the direction of my socket wrench. Put your panel back on, and then tighten. Excellent. Now, I'm no registered technician, as you know, but I'm going to prescribe you with watching a wider variety of ASMR content so that you aren't just burning out those same components again, okay? All right. I'll close out your file here. Oh, no. You don't owe me anything. First repair is free, as long as you promise to come back if you want any upgrades. Or if you have any issues, but I don't think that's very likely to happen. Alright, well, good luck out there. Sleep well.